I was standing in my childhood home, champagne glass in hand, surrounded by 50 people celebrating my mother's 60th birthday. The chandelier sparkled above us, laughter echoed through the rooms. Everyone was dressed beautifully, the buffet table overflowed with food, and my mother looked radiant in her navy dress. It was perfect. Then, my phone rang. The screen showed Sophie, my 10-year-old daughter. My heart lurched. She was supposed to be at a sleepover. Her voice came through trembling, urgent. "Mom, get out. Now." "What happened?" I asked, my throat tightening. Her voice cracked with fear. "Get out of the house, please, Mom." "Trust me." I stood frozen on the lawn in my party dress minutes later, my phone pressed to my ear, watching through the windows as the celebration continued without me. I had no idea what was happening, but something in my daughter's terror made me obey without question. The cool evening air hit my bare arms as I stood on the front lawn, my heels sinking slightly into the grass. Through the large windows of my mother's house, I could see the party continuing. People laughing, raising glasses, my husband Todd moving through the crowd with that easy smile I'd loved for 12 years. Everything looked normal. Everything looked perfect. But Sophie was sobbing on the phone. "Baby, talk to me. What's wrong? Where are you?" She could barely speak through her crying. "I came home early," she gasped. "From the sleepover. I felt sick. I wanted to surprise you at Grandma's party." My mind raced. "You're here? At Mom's house?" "I was," she whispered. "But I left. I'm at Mrs. Peterson's house next door." "Mom, I heard something. Something bad." My hands were shaking. "What did you hear?" "When I got here, I went upstairs to use the bathroom, because there were people in the downstairs one. And I heard voices. Dad's voice. And Grandma's. And Uncle Craig's. They were in Grandma's bedroom, and the door was open a little bit. I hid in the hallway closet because I didn't want them to know I was there yet." "Sophie, what did they say?" "Mom, they were talking about you. About papers they want you to sign tonight. About money." She took a shaky breath. "Dad is cheating on you. With Aunt Melissa. For 2 years. Grandma knows. Uncle Craig knows. They've all been planning something together." The world tilted. Melissa, my best friend since college. The woman who'd held my hand through Sophie's birth. The woman who came to our house every week for dinner. "That's not all," Sophie continued, her voice getting stronger with urgency. "They want you to sign papers tonight for refinancing the house. But Dad already forged your name on other stuff. He's been taking money from your accounts. They said once you sign the new papers, Dad is going to file for divorce and try to take me away from you. He's going to say you're crazy. Grandma and Uncle Craig are going to help him. They're getting paid money to do it." I couldn't breathe. My own mother, my younger brother Craig, who had helped through college, who had supported when he couldn't find work. My husband of 12 years, the father of my child. "They said they're going to do it tonight," Sophie whispered. "After the cake, when everyone is distracted. They have a lawyer ready and everything. Mom, I'm so scared." I forced myself to think through the shock. "Listen to me, baby. Go to our house, not Grandma's. Use your key. Lock the doors. I'm going to call Amanda and have her come get you and take you to her place. You'll be safe there. But what about you?" "I'll be okay. I promise. Just do what I say. I love you so much. You were so brave to call me." After I hung up with Sophie, I called my friend Amanda. She lived 20 minutes away and had always been someone I could count on. When I told her what was happening, she didn't question me, didn't ask if I was sure. She just said she'd get Sophie immediately and keep her safe. Then I stood there on the lawn, still holding my phone, staring at the warm yellow light spilling from my mother's windows. Part of me wanted to run, get in my car, drive away, never look back. But I knew that wouldn't work. It would be my word against theirs. A hysterical wife making accusations. They'd have me declared unstable before the end of the week. I needed proof. I needed evidence. I needed to record them saying all of this themselves. My hands were steadier now as I opened my phone's voice recording app and hit record. I put the phone in my clutch purse, made sure the microphone wasn't covered, and took a deep breath. Then I walked back into the party. Todd was standing in the foyer, holding 2 champagne glasses. When he saw me, his face lit up with that familiar loving smile that had made me feel safe for over a decade. "There you are, honey. We were worried. Your mom wants to cut the cake now. And then we have something important to discuss with you." His hand was warm on my lower back as he guided me toward the dining room. I wanted to scream. I wanted to claw at his face. Instead, I smiled and took the champagne glass he offered me. The birthday cake was magnificent. 3 tiers covered in white frosting and fresh flowers. Everyone gathered around as my mother stood behind it, glowing with happiness. We sang "Happy Birthday." She made a wish and blew out the candles. People clapped and cheered. Todd's arm was around my waist the entire time, his thumb making small circles on my hip like he always did. Like he loved me. Like he wasn't planning to destroy my life. I took a sip of champagne and felt it burn down my throat. My purse hung from my shoulder, recording everything. After cake was served and people were scattered around the house eating and talking, my mother approached me. She touched my arm gently, her eyes soft. "Darling, could you come to my study for a moment? Just family business, nothing to worry about." "Todd and Craig are already there." "Of course, Mom." I followed her down the familiar hallway to her study, the room where she'd helped me with homework as a child, where we'd had serious talks when I was a teenager. The room felt smaller now, more confined. Todd was sitting in one of the leather chairs. Craig stood by the window. My mother closed the door behind us. "We wanted to talk to you about something exciting," my mother began, settling into her chair behind the desk. "Todd has been looking into refinancing your house. The interest rates are so much better now. It could save you thousands of dollars every year." Todd leaned forward, his expression earnest and enthusiastic. "I found this great opportunity, Bryn. We can pull out some equity too, invest it smartly. I have all the paperwork ready. We just need your signature." Craig nodded enthusiastically. "It's really smart financial planning, sis. You'd be foolish not to take advantage of rates this good." I made myself look confused but interested. "Why didn't you mention this before tonight?" Todd reached over and squeezed my hand. "I wanted to surprise you. Have everything ready so you wouldn't have to worry about any of the details. That's what a good husband does, right? Takes care of the complicated stuff." I looked down at the papers he was sliding across the desk. Official-looking documents with sticky tabs marking where I should sign. My recording was still running in my purse. "Can I read through these first?" I asked, picking up the first page. "Of course," my mother said smoothly. "Take your time, darling. Though the lawyer needs them by Monday morning to process everything, so we should finalize tonight if possible." I started reading, asking questions, playing the role of the dutiful wife who was a little confused by financial jargon but trusting her husband. Todd grew more comfortable, more confident. He started explaining things with that slightly condescending tone he used when he thought he was being helpful. My mother chimed in with encouragement. Craig made jokes about how boring paperwork was. Then the study door opened. Melissa walked in. My former best friend. She was wearing a red dress I'd helped her pick out last month. Her eyes went straight to Todd with an intimacy that made my stomach turn. "Is she signing it?" "We need this done tonight, Todd. The lawyer needs the documents by Monday morning for the filing." I froze, my pen hovering over a signature line. Melissa looked at me with barely concealed impatience. "Once you file for divorce and get custody, we can finally be together openly." And with her mother and brother testifying about her mental instability, no judge will give her custody of Sophie. The words hung in the air. They weren't even pretending anymore. They thought I was so naive, so trusting, so pathetically devoted that they could do this right in front of me. Melissa continued, oblivious to my shock, or perhaps enjoying it. "Finally, we can have the life we've been planning. You, me, and Sophie. A real family." I stood up slowly. My hand went into my purse. I pulled out my phone and held it up, the recording app still running. "I've recorded everything. Every word. Sophie told me about your plan. I came back to get proof, and you gave it to me." For a moment, no one moved. Then Todd laughed. Actually laughed. He stood up, shaking his head like I was a silly child. "You think that matters? We've been planning this for 2 years, Bryn. I have documentation of your erratic behavior from our marriage counselor, Dr. Patterson. I have statements from your mother about your childhood mental health issues. I have financial records showing you've been making irresponsible purchases. Your recording means nothing compared to what we have." The marriage counselor. The safe space where I'd opened up about my stress, my fears, my struggles. He'd been paid to weaponize my vulnerability against me. Craig stepped forward. "We've thought of everything, Bryn. Mom is going to testify about how you've always been unstable. I'm going to testify about your recent erratic behavior at family gatherings. Todd will get the house, custody, and the money. Mom and I each get $50,000 for our help. Melissa moves into your house with Todd and Sophie. It's already decided. My mother's face was cold, impassive. You should just sign the papers, darling. Make this easier on yourself. I moved toward the door. Todd stepped in front of it, blocking my path. You're not going anywhere until you sign these papers. I'll scream. I'll bring everyone at the party in here. Go ahead. We'll tell them you're having a mental breakdown, that you're paranoid. Who do you think they'll believe? Your loving husband and devoted mother? Or you? My mother added, almost gently, Darling, we're all so worried about you. This is for your own good. I looked at each of them. My husband, my mother, my brother, my best friend. 4 people who should have loved me, who I'd trusted completely, staring at me with cold calculation. I'll sign, I said quietly. If you let me leave. If you give me one night to say goodbye to Sophie properly before you start all this. I'll give you what you want. Just give me that. Todd studied my face. Then he nodded. Fine. But you sign now. My hand shook as I picked up the pen. I was signing away everything. My home, my savings, my future. But I had the recording. I had proof. Surely that would matter in court. I signed every page where they'd marked. Todd gathered the papers with satisfaction. Smart choice. I walked past him, past all of them, out of the study. I moved through the party in a daze. People tried to talk to me, but I barely heard them. I got to my car, started the engine, and drove straight to Amanda's house. Sophie ran into my arms when I arrived. I held her and cried. But I had the recording. I had evidence. Everything would be okay. The next morning, I sat in the office of Janet Pierce, the best divorce attorney Amanda could find on short notice. Janet was in her 50s, with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. She listened to my story carefully, taking notes. Then I played her the recording. We sat in silence after it finished. Janet folded her hands on her desk. Bryn, I need to be completely honest with you about something. This recording was made without the consent of the other parties involved, in a private residence. Your state has 2-party consent laws for recordings. This evidence is inadmissible in court. It's essentially useless from a legal standpoint. My stomach dropped. What? Moreover, she continued, by signing those documents, even under duress, you've potentially validated them legally. Your claim that the signatures were forged will be harder to prove now since your genuine signature is on the refinancing documents. They can argue you were aware and consenting to everything, but they threatened me. They admitted to the conspiracy, which we can't prove with this recording. She tapped her pen on the desk. I'm not saying your situation isn't real or serious. I'm saying we have an uphill battle. We need to move fast, and we need to be strategic. That afternoon, a courier delivered divorce papers to Amanda's house. Todd was filing. He was doing exactly what Sophie had overheard. Within 48 hours, he filed for emergency custody of Sophie. The emergency custody petition made me physically ill. Todd claimed I was mentally unstable and a danger to our daughter. Attached were pages of documentation. Dr. Patterson's therapy notes, describing my alleged paranoid delusions, anxiety attacks, and emotional instability. A statement from my mother expressing deep concern about my mental health and erratic behavior. A statement from Craig describing incidents where I'd behaved irrationally at family gatherings, all of which were complete fabrications. Financial records supposedly showing reckless spending and poor judgment. Janet filed responses, but she was blunt with me. This is sophisticated. They've built a paper trail over time. We're going to have a fight on our hands. Sophie was still with me, but the court scheduled an emergency hearing for the following week. Janet warned me that with the evidence Todd had manufactured, there was a real chance I could lose custody, at least temporarily. Then I checked our bank accounts. They were empty. Every penny from our joint checking, our joint savings, the money market account, gone. I called the bank about the home equity loan that I'd signed for at my mother's party. It had been processed. $200,000 deposited and then immediately withdrawn. That money was gone too. I was suddenly completely broke. No income since my freelance graphic design business depended on my computer equipment which was at the house I could no longer enter. No savings. No access to funds. Living in Amanda's spare bedroom with my daughter and the clothes we'd been wearing. 3 days after the birthday party, another letter arrived. This one was from my mother's attorney. Linda Hartley was suing me for emotional distress and slander. The lawsuit claimed I'd made false and malicious accusations about my mother's involvement in a conspiracy, damaging her reputation in the community. She was seeking $75,000 in damages. I showed the letter to Janet. She set it down with a grim expression. They're burying you. Legal fees for the divorce, custody battle, and now a defamation suit. They're trying to make it financially impossible for you to fight any of this. How much are we talking? I asked. Conservatively, $80,000 in legal fees, possibly more. And if you lose your mother's lawsuit, that's another $75,000. Amanda had already loaned me $10,000 for Janet's retainer. I couldn't ask her for more. I had no income, no savings, no way to pay for lawyers. I was being systematically destroyed. The emergency custody hearing was a nightmare. Todd's lawyer was smooth and prepared. They called Dr. Patterson first. He testified about my therapy sessions, describing delusional episodes and paranoid tendencies with such clinical authority that even I almost believed him. He said I'd been obsessed with the idea that people were conspiring against me, that I'd been increasingly unable to distinguish reality from paranoid fantasies. Then my mother took the stand. She wore a conservative dress and looked like the perfect concerned parent. She cried as she testified about her worry for me, about troubling behaviors she'd noticed over the years, about how she'd tried to help but I'd pushed her away. She made me sound like I'd been mentally ill for years, carefully hiding it until finally cracking. Craig was next. He described incidents that never happened with such specific detail that he must have practiced. He said I'd accused him of stealing from me at Thanksgiving. He said I'd had an outburst at a family dinner where I'd claimed everyone was talking about me behind my back. He said I'd been making wild accusations about Todd for months. All lies. All delivered with seemingly genuine concern. Melissa even testified. She described herself as my longtime friend who'd watched with growing alarm as my behavior became more erratic. She said I'd accused her of flirting with Todd, that I'd been jealous and paranoid, that she was worried about Sophie's safety. Our defense was weak in comparison. I didn't have documentation. I didn't have witnesses. I had my word, Sophie's word, and Janet's arguments about conspiracy and fraud. But we couldn't prove any of it with admissible evidence. The guardian ad litem, a stern woman named Patricia Vance, interviewed Sophie privately. Sophie told the truth. She described what she'd overheard, what she'd seen. But Miss Vance was skeptical. In her report to the court, she noted that Sophie was clearly a bright child but possibly confused by adult conversations she'd partially heard and misinterpreted. She suggested that Sophie might be unduly influenced by my own paranoid beliefs. The judge was a middle-aged man named Henry Morrison. He listened to everything carefully. Then he made his ruling. Given the concerning testimony regarding Miss Hartley's mental state, and in the interest of the minor child's welfare, I'm granting temporary custody to Mr. Todd Brennan, pending a full hearing in 3 months. Miss Hartley will have supervised visitation twice weekly, 2 hours per session. Both parties are ordered to continue in counseling. Sophie screamed. She tried to run to me, but the bailiff stopped her. Todd's lawyer held Sophie gently but firmly as she cried and reached for me. I was crying too, trying to get to my daughter. The courtroom was chaos. Finally, they let me hold her for a moment. I'm going to fix this, I whispered into her hair. I promise. I'm going to get you back. Then Todd took her hand and led her out of the courtroom. She looked back at me with such fear and sadness that I thought my heart would literally break. The days after losing temporary custody blurred together in grief and rage. I stayed in Amanda's spare room, unable to eat, barely sleeping. My daughter was living with the man who'd betrayed me and the woman who'd helped destroy my life. Every minute of every day, I imagined Sophie scared or sad, and I couldn't protect her. The community turned against me fast. In a town of 15,000 people, gossip spreads like wildfire. The story being told was that poor Todd Brennan's wife had a mental breakdown at her own mother's birthday party. She'd made insane accusations, attacked her loving family, and was now in the middle of a custody battle because she was clearly unstable. Parents at Sophie's school whispered when they saw me. The few times I went to the grocery store, former acquaintances looked away. My graphic design business evaporated. Clients canceled contracts. New prospects stopped responding to emails. Nobody wanted to work with the crazy woman. My income dropped to 0 within 2 weeks. The supervised visitations were torture. Twice a week, I was allowed to see my daughter for 2 hours in a bland room at the Family Services Building. A court-appointed supervisor, a woman named Grace Chen, sat in the corner with a clipboard, watching us and taking notes. Sophie and I sat at a table with coloring books and board games, trying to be normal while being observed like laboratory specimens. At the first visit, Sophie looked thin and tired. She hugged me desperately. "Are you okay?" I asked quietly. Grace immediately spoke up. "No whispering, please. All conversation should be audible." I raised my voice slightly. "Are you doing okay at Dad's house, sweetie?" Sophie nodded, but her eyes were sad. She picked up a crayon and started coloring. As she drew, she talked in a normal voice about school, about her homework, about normal 10-year-old things. But she was drawing pictures that told a different story. A house with dark windows. A girl with a sad face. A woman with yellow hair looming large, which I realized was Melissa. Then came another blow. I received a notice from the IRS. Todd had filed our joint tax returns for the previous 3 years with fraudulent deductions and fake business expenses. The IRS was auditing us and assessing penalties of $60,000. Because the returns were filed jointly, I was equally liable. Todd's lawyer sent a letter stating that Todd would testify Bryn had handled all the finances and tax preparation. He was setting me up for tax fraud. I brought everything to Janet. We sat in her office surrounded by documents and evidence. She reviewed it all carefully. "Bryn, this is evidence of premeditation. We can use this. But I need to be honest. It's still not enough for the court. We need more. We need them to make a mistake. We need a crack in their story." "What kind of mistake?" "Something that reveals what they shouldn't know. Something that proves collusion. A slip-up." She paused. "The supervised visitations might be an opportunity." "What do you mean?" "If Sophie can tell you what she sees and hears in Todd's house, it might give us information we can use. I'm not suggesting you coach her or ask leading questions. Just let her talk naturally about her life. If she mentions things, you mention them to me." I felt sick at the thought of using Sophie this way. She's already traumatized. I know. And I wouldn't suggest this if I saw any other option. But Sophie is living in that house. She's hearing things, seeing things. If she volunteers information to you during visits, that's allowed. We just need to listen. At the next visitation, I was careful. I didn't ask Sophie anything inappropriate, but she was smart. She understood without me having to explain. As we worked on a puzzle together, she talked about her week in a normal voice, the supervisor listening to every word. "Dad and Melissa had a big fight last night. Melissa was mad about money. She said something wasn't fair. Dad told her to wait until the divorce is final." The supervisor made a note, but said nothing. The information seemed innocuous enough, but I caught it. Melissa was expecting money. They'd promised her something, just like they'd promised money to my mother and Craig. And there was tension about payments. Over the next 2 weeks, through careful conversations during supervised visits, Sophie gave me more pieces. She mentioned that her grandmother hadn't visited, which was odd. She mentioned Uncle Craig seemed nervous when he came by. She mentioned hearing her father on the phone late at night, arguing with someone about payments and schedules. Janet took all this information and hired a forensic accountant. It cost money I didn't have. Amanda offered to take out a loan against her house. I cried when she told me, "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. You're my friend. And you're being railroaded. We're going to prove it." The forensic accountant, a meticulous man named Gary Webb, dug into Todd's finances. He worked for 2 weeks, tracing accounts, following money trails, building spreadsheets. Then he called Janet with his findings. We met in Janet's office. Gary spread out his reports. "Your husband has a serious gambling problem. He's been gambling online for 3 years, primarily on sports betting sites and online poker. He's lost catastrophic amounts of money." "How much?" I asked. "Over $400,000 in the last 3 years. His debts to actual loan sharks and illegal gambling operations total at least $300,000 currently." My head spun. $300,000? The affair with Melissa started at the same time. She was a dealer at an underground poker game. Gary showed me more documents. This whole scheme, it wasn't primarily about the affair, or even about hurting you specifically. It was about money. Todd desperately needs money to pay off gambling debts. The money he took from your joint accounts, the home equity loan, the fraudulent tax refunds, all of it went directly to paying gambling debts. And he's still gambling. He's still losing. But he promised my mother and Craig $50,000 each. Gary flipped to another page. He paid them $20,000 each initially. The rest was supposed to come after the divorce finalized. But based on his current accounts, he doesn't have that money. He's broke and still accumulating debt. "What about Melissa?" I asked. "There are text messages between Todd and Melissa. We obtained them through legal discovery. Melissa expected to marry a wealthy man. Instead, she's living with someone who's hemorrhaging money to gambling debts and loan sharks. She's not happy. This was the crack we needed. Todd's co-conspirators weren't getting what they were promised. The alliance was built on lies and greed, and it was fracturing. Janet outlined our strategy. We approach Craig first. He's weak. We show him that Todd lied about the money. We offer immunity if he testifies truthfully. Then the whole conspiracy collapses. 2 days later, I met Craig at a coffee shop. Janet was with me. Craig looked uncomfortable, aggressive, defensive. "What do you want, Bryn?" "I want to show you something." I slid bank records across the table. "Todd promised you $50,000 to help him destroy me, but he only paid you $20. Here's proof. And he's not going to pay you the rest because he doesn't have it. He's buried in gambling debts. He used you." Craig's face went pale as he looked at the documents. He tried to hide his shock, but I saw it. "He doesn't have the money?" "No. He played you. He played Mom, too. You betrayed your own sister for money you're never going to get." Craig's hands shook slightly. But then the coffee shop door opened. My mother walked in. Somehow she'd known about this meeting. She walked straight to our table and sat down, her face cold with fury. "You're trying to turn my son against me. It won't work. Craig knows where his loyalty lies." She looked at Craig. "Let's go." Craig hesitated for just a moment. I saw doubt in his eyes, confusion, fear. But years of being under our mother's control won out. He stood up and left with her. My mother leaned across the table. Her voice was low and venomous. "I will never let you have Sophie back. Never. You were always an ungrateful daughter. Always difficult. Always questioning me. I'm glad Todd came to me with this plan. It gave me a chance to finally put you in your place. You'll be buried in legal fees until you have nothing left. And Sophie will grow up knowing her mother was crazy." The hatred in her eyes was stunning. This wasn't about money for her. It was about power, about control, about punishing me for not being the compliant daughter she'd wanted. But this time, I was ready. I was wearing a wire. Janet had arranged it. And this conversation, in a public place, with my mother volunteering information about the conspiracy, was being recorded legally. After she left, Janet and I returned to her office. We had the recording. We had evidence. But when we walked in, there was an urgent message from the court. Todd had filed an emergency motion to terminate all my visitation rights with Sophie. He claimed I'd violated court orders by trying to manipulate Sophie during supervised visits, by asking inappropriate questions, by attempting to alienate the child. The hearing was in 3 days. And there was a second message. Linda's attorney had sent a letter to Amanda, threatening to sue her for harboring me, for interfering in family matters, for enabling my supposed mental instability. They were trying to take away my last support system, the one person still standing by me. I sat in Janet's office and felt despair settle over me like a weight. Every time I tried to fight back, they came at me harder. Every time I found a crack in their plan, they sealed it with another legal attack. I was running out of time, running out of money, and running out of hope. 10 weeks after my mother's birthday party, I was living my worst nightmare. The emergency hearing to terminate my visitation rights was happening tomorrow. Amanda was being threatened with lawsuits for helping me. Craig had chosen our mother over the truth, and I hadn't seen Sophie in 2 weeks because Todd had convinced the court that visits should be suspended pending the emergency hearing. Janet and I sat in the courtroom as Todd's lawyer presented their case. They had statements from Grace, the court supervisor, claiming I'd whispered inappropriately with Sophie and asked leading questions designed to manipulate her testimony. They'd twisted innocent conversations into evidence of my supposedly manipulative and unstable behavior. Todd took the stand. He was calm, sad, convincing. "My wife is sick. I love her, but I have to protect our daughter. After every visit with her mother, Sophie comes home distressed and confused. Bryn is trying to turn Sophie against me. It's heartbreaking, but I have to do what's best for our child." Melissa testified as the concerned stepmother figure. She'd never even married Todd, but she played the role perfectly. Sophie needs stability. She needs a calm home environment. Her mother's paranoid accusations are damaging her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage. But I sat there quietly, knowing any outburst would just prove their point. Then Judge Morrison did something unexpected. "I'd like to speak with the minor child in my chambers, privately." 20 minutes later, Sophie was brought into the courthouse. She looked small and scared. The bailiff led her to the judge's private chambers. Janet squeezed my hand. This could go either way. We waited for 45 minutes. When the judge returned, his expression was serious. He called the court back to order. I've spoken with Sophie at length. Her account is detailed, specific, and consistent. She does not present as a coached child. She presents as a child who has witnessed and overheard real events. Moreover, her distress appears to stem not from seeing her mother, but from being prevented from seeing her mother. My heart leaped. I'm denying the motion to terminate visitation. Moreover, I'm ordering an investigation by Child Protective Services into the household environment. And I'm moving the final custody hearing up. It will take place in 4 weeks instead of 6. It was a small victory, but it felt enormous. Sophie could still see me. Someone finally believed her. But 4 weeks. I had 4 weeks to gather enough evidence to win custody permanently. That night, Janet and I strategized. The forensic accountant's report about Todd's gambling was good. My mother's recorded confession from the coffee shop was good, but we needed more. We needed something irrefutable. Then Gary, the forensic accountant, found it. He came to Janet's office the next day with a grim expression. There's something else. 2 years ago, right when this whole scheme started, Todd took out a life insurance policy on Bryn, $2 million. Sophie is the beneficiary, but Todd is the trustee until she turns 18. If anything happened to Bryn, Todd would control $2 million for the next 8 years. Janet and I looked at each other. Was this plan ever just about divorce? Or had something darker been intended? We can't prove intent, Janet said carefully. But the timing is suspicious. Taking out a massive policy on your wife without telling her, right when you start planning to destroy her life financially and take her child, that's worth investigating. The next evening, someone pounded on Amanda's door at 11 o'clock at night. Amanda looked through the peephole and gasped, "It's Melissa." We opened the door cautiously. Melissa stood there, drunk and crying, mascara running down her face. She stumbled into the living room. "I need help. I need to tell someone. I can't do this anymore." For the next hour, she told us everything. Todd was not the man she thought he was. He was controlling, emotionally abusive, sometimes physically intimidating when he drank. She'd thought he had money, thought they'd have a good life together. But he was broke, and desperate, and scary. She'd helped him destroy my life, thinking she'd get something out of it. Instead, she was trapped. "He hits you?" Amanda asked quietly. "Not yet. But he's getting angrier. He's meeting with dangerous people. These men who come to the house late at night. Loan sharks, I think. He's terrified of them." She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. I was stupid and selfish, and I believed his lies. He told me you were cold and didn't love him anymore. He told me you were taking his money and refusing to work. I thought I was helping him escape a bad marriage. I didn't know he was setting you up like this." "Why should I believe you?" I asked. "Because I'll testify. I'll tell the court everything. About the affair, about the gambling, about the plan, about the payments to the therapist, about how he coached your mother and brother on what to say. I know things. I have texts and emails. I'll give you everything if you can help me get away from him safely." Janet drew up an affidavit that night. Melissa signed it, detailing everything she knew about the conspiracy. It was devastating testimony. Then we got her to a women's shelter with a restraining order. When Todd discovered Melissa was gone the next morning, he lost control. He showed up at Amanda's house at 2 a.m, pounding on the door, shouting for Melissa. The neighbors called the police. Officers arrived and found Todd drunk and belligerent. He'd violated an emergency protective order Janet had obtained for me. He was arrested. While Todd was in jail overnight, Janet worked fast. She filed emergency motions with the court. She submitted my mother's recorded confession. She submitted Melissa's affidavit. She submitted Gary's forensic report about the gambling debts and fraud. She submitted evidence of the life insurance policy. She submitted proof that Todd had paid Dr. Patterson to falsify therapy records. She requested an emergency hearing. And then Craig broke. With Todd in jail and the evidence mounting, he panicked. He called Janet's office. "I'll testify. I'll tell the truth. Just please give me immunity from the civil lawsuits." Janet negotiated quickly. Craig would provide testimony and all text messages and emails proving the conspiracy. In exchange, he'd face no civil liability from me. Craig's statement was damning. He admitted our mother had approached him with the scheme. Linda had been furious with me for years over perceived slights in my independence. When Todd came to her with his plan, she'd seen an opportunity for revenge and money. Craig had gone along because Linda pressured him and because he needed money. They'd fabricated all the stories about my mental health. They'd lied in court. They'd coordinated their testimony, all of it for money that Todd never intended to pay. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for 8 in the morning. I barely slept. Amanda and I went over everything one more time. We had evidence. We had witnesses. We had the truth. But at 7:30 in the morning, my phone rang. It was Sophie's school. Sophie never arrived this morning. Mr. Brennan was released from jail at 6 and was supposed to drop her off. She's not here. We can't reach Mr. Brennan. Do you know where Sophie is? My blood went cold. No. I called Todd's number. No answer. I called his house. No answer. I called Janet. He's run with her. He's taken Sophie and disappeared. The next 6 hours were the longest of my life. An Amber Alert was issued immediately. Every police department in the state was looking for Todd's car, a silver Honda Accord. His photo and Sophie's photo were on every news channel. Amber Alert notifications went out to every phone in a 100-mile radius. The emergency custody hearing was postponed. Nothing else mattered except finding Sophie. Janet, Amanda, and I sat in Janet's office, my phone on the table, waiting for any news. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sit still. I paced the room imagining every horrible possibility. What if he hurt her? What if he was driving to another state? To Mexico? What if I never saw my daughter again? Amanda held my hand. We're going to find her. Sophie is smart. She's going to be okay. At 2:15 in the afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Is this Bryn Hartley? Yes. Who is this? This is Officer Sarah Martinez with the state police. We found your daughter. She's safe. I collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Where? Is she okay? She's at a gas station 83 miles from your location, just off Highway 40. She's unharmed. Your ex-husband has been taken into custody. How did you find her? Your daughter is very brave, ma'am. She called 911 from the gas station bathroom. She locked herself in and called for help. We drove 83 miles in just over an hour. I didn't care about speed limits. The police had already arrived at the gas station by the time we got there. I ran inside and found Sophie with Officer Martinez, drinking hot chocolate and wrapped in a police blanket despite the warm weather. Mom! Sophie ran into my arms and we both dissolved into tears. I held her so tight. I'm here, baby. You're safe. You're safe. Sophie told us what happened. Todd had woken her up at 5 in the morning. He said they were going on a trip, just the two of them. Sophie knew something was wrong. He'd packed bags. He seemed frantic. They drove for hours, Todd barely speaking, checking his phone constantly. When he stopped for gas, Sophie asked to use the bathroom. He let her go, thinking she was too scared to try anything. But Sophie locked the bathroom door and called 911. She told them her name, her father's name, the make of the car, and that she was in danger. Then she waited until the police arrived. You were so brave, I told her, over and over. So incredibly brave. Todd tried to run when the police arrived. They chased him down in the gas station parking lot. He was charged with parental kidnapping, violating court orders, and child endangerment. Bail was set at $100,000, which he couldn't pay. Sophie was placed in my custody immediately with an emergency order. We drove back to Amanda's house. Sophie fell asleep in my arms on the couch. I watched her breathe, still not quite believing she was safe. Over the next 2 days, everything unraveled for Todd. Facing serious criminal charges and possible prison time, his lawyer advised him to cooperate. Todd started confessing, trying to cut a deal. He admitted to the gambling debts. He admitted to the fraud and forgery. He admitted paying Dr. Patterson to create false therapy records. He threw Linda and Craig under the bus, claiming they'd pressured him and extorted money from him. He was trying to save himself. But every confession just confirmed everything we'd been saying. The full custody hearing was held 2 weeks after Sophie's rescue. But it wasn't a fight anymore. Todd's lawyer advised him not to contest custody. The evidence was overwhelming. The criminal charges were pending. He had no credibility left. Judge Morrison looked stern as he delivered his ruling. Mr. Brennan has demonstrated himself to be dishonest, manipulative, and a danger to his child. He orchestrated an elaborate fraud, committed perjury, suborned perjury, and ultimately kidnapped his own daughter. His actions are inexcusable. He sat forward. I am granting Miss Hartley full legal and physical custody of Sophie. Mr. Brennan is granted no visitation rights pending the outcome of his criminal proceedings. If convicted, visitation will be at the court's discretion after his sentence is served. Sophie squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. We'd won. The divorce settlement came quickly after that. Todd had no leverage, no bargaining position. Janet negotiated aggressively. Todd was forced to sign the house over to me entirely. He assumed all the fraudulent debts. The home equity loan debt was assigned to him. The IRS penalties were assigned to him. The only thing I had to agree to was not pursuing additional civil damages beyond what the divorce settlement provided. I accepted. I just wanted it over. Linda's defamation lawsuit against me evaporated. Her lawyer withdrew it immediately once the truth came out. Then I filed a countersuit against both Linda and Craig for fraud, conspiracy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and perjury. Craig's testimony meant he had immunity, but Linda had no such protection. Linda tried to fight. She hired an expensive lawyer and claimed she'd been manipulated by Todd, that she was a victim too. But Craig's testimony destroyed that defense. He testified that Linda had been the driving force behind much of the planning. She'd been eager to participate. She'd wanted revenge on me for perceived slights and for not being the daughter she wanted. Eventually, Linda settled out of court. She paid me $75,000, the exact amount she'd tried to sue me for. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Craig apologized, though I could barely stand to look at him. Our relationship was destroyed forever. I told him I'd never forgive him, and I meant it. Dr. Patterson lost his license to practice psychology. The state medical board investigated and found multiple ethical violations. He was facing criminal charges for fraud. His career was over. The community's attitude toward me shifted dramatically once the truth came out. People who'd gossiped about me suddenly felt ashamed. Former friends reached out with awkward apologies. Parents at Sophie's school went out of their way to be kind. My graphic design business began to recover as clients returned, and new ones reached out. Within 2 months, I was making money again. Melissa kept her word and testified at Todd's criminal trial. She was granted immunity in exchange for her testimony. After the trial, she left town. I heard she moved to another state, trying to start over. I never saw her again. I didn't want to. Todd was convicted of multiple counts of fraud, forgery, perjury, and kidnapping. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. His gambling debts were his problem now, and his creditors couldn't collect from someone incarcerated. I was protected from all of it. 3 months after my mother's 60th birthday party, I was standing in my kitchen. The house was mine again, legally and fully. Sophie was at the table doing homework, humming to herself. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows. The kitchen smelled like the cookies we'd baked earlier. Everything was peaceful. The doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw my mother and Craig standing on the porch. I hadn't spoken to either of them since the settlement. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. My mother's face was haggard, older than I remembered. She'd lost weight. Craig looked miserable. "Please," my mother said. "Can we talk?" "Talk about what?" I made a terrible mistake. She started crying. I was angry and bitter, and I let it poison me. I destroyed my relationship with you for money I never even needed. I betrayed my own daughter. "Please, Bryn. I'm so sorry. I want a relationship with you and Sophie. I want to be a grandmother. I want to be a mother to you." Craig nodded eagerly. "We both messed up so badly. We know that. We'll do anything to make it right. Therapy, family counseling, whatever you need. Just please forgive us." I looked at them both. 3 months ago, they'd stood in that study and casually discussed destroying my life. They'd testified in court that I was mentally unstable. They'd tried to take my daughter from me. They'd done it for money and petty revenge. "You chose to betray me," I said quietly. "You chose to try to take my daughter from me. You chose cruelty and greed over love. Those were your choices. You made them knowing exactly what you were doing. Now I'm making mine. Bryn, please," my mother begged. "I want you to leave. I want you to never contact me again. I want you to never try to see Sophie. You destroyed this family. You destroyed any possibility of a relationship. That was your doing, not mine." "But we're family," Craig protested. "No. You stopped being my family when you lied in court about me, when you helped try to steal my child, when you chose money over your own sister. Family doesn't do what you did." I pointed down the driveway. "Leave, and don't come back." They stood there for a moment, both crying. Then they turned and left. I closed the door and locked it. Sophie appeared next to me. Was that Grandma? Yes. Are you sad? No, baby. I'm free. The weeks that followed were strange. Good strange. Normal strange. Sophie and I settled into a routine. School, homework, dinner together, movie nights, baking on weekends. Simple, ordinary things that felt precious because we'd almost lost them. Sophie was in therapy with a wonderful counselor named Dr. Rachel Kim, who specialized in childhood trauma. Dr. Kim told me Sophie was resilient, that she was processing things in a healthy way. She's going to be okay, Dr. Kim assured me. She has you, and you fought for her. That matters more than you know. Amanda became more than a friend. She became family, the sister I should have had instead of a brother who betrayed me. She and Sophie and I had dinners together every week. We celebrated when Amanda got a promotion at work. We were building something new and good. My graphic design business was thriving. Words spread about what had happened to me, and somehow that made people trust me more, not less. I think they saw me as a survivor, a fighter. I had more clients than I could handle and had to start turning work down. The house was ours, free and clear. I redecorated Sophie's room the way she'd always wanted it, with lavender walls and fairy lights. I set up a proper home office for my business. I planted flowers in the garden. Every change erased a little more of Todd's presence. But there were still hard days. Days when Sophie had nightmares about the gas station bathroom, about hiding in her grandmother's closet. Days when I checked the locks 3 times before bed. Days when I saw a silver Honda Accord and my heart raced before I realized it wasn't Todd's car. And there were the questions from Sophie that broke my heart. Mom, why did Grandma do that to us? I don't know, baby. Sometimes people make terrible choices. Does Dad hate me? No. Dad is sick in a way that has nothing to do with you. You didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault. Will I ever see him again? I don't know. Maybe someday when you're older, if you want to. But not now. Now you're safe with me. The legal aftermath dragged on longer than I expected. Todd's criminal trial took 3 months. I had to testify. Sophie had to testify, though the judge allowed her to do it via video from another room. It was grueling, but necessary. When the guilty verdicts came in, I felt relief but not joy. This wasn't a win. It was just an ending. Linda tried to reach out several more times. Letters arrived asking for forgiveness, for another chance. I returned them unopened. She tried calling from different numbers until I had my phone set to block unknowns. She even tried to approach Sophie after school once, but the school had strict orders not to release Sophie to anyone but me or Amanda. Security escorted Linda off the property. Craig sent emails. Long, rambling apologies filled with excuses and justifications. I was weak. Mom pressured me. I needed the money. I didn't think it would go this far. I deleted them all without responding. His attempts at reconciliation felt more about easing his own guilt than genuine remorse. The forensic accountant's final report revealed even more of Todd's financial disasters. He'd lost over $500,000 gambling in just 3 years. He'd taken out loans from multiple illegal sources. He'd maxed out credit cards I didn't know existed. The web of lies and debt was staggering, and he'd tried to solve it all by destroying me. Janet Pierce became another important person in my life. She'd fought for me when I had nothing, when the odds were impossible. After everything was settled, she told me she'd reduced her fees substantially. I tried to argue, but she refused. Some cases matter more than money, she said. Yours mattered. 6 months after the birthday party, life felt almost normal. Not the old normal, which had been built on lies I didn't know existed. A new normal. Honest. Solid. Real. Sophie's 10th birthday came. I threw her a party. Just a few close friends and Amanda. We had pizza and ice cream cake and silly games in the backyard. Sophie laughed so hard she got hiccups. Watching her be a kid again, carefree and happy, was the best gift I could have received. That night, after her friends went home and Sophie was in bed, I sat in the backyard with Amanda. We drank wine and looked at the stars. You did it, Amanda said. You got through it. We got through it. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you know. I thought about that. Maybe I was. I'd lost everything and fought my way back. I'd protected my daughter against people who should have loved us. I'd survived the worst betrayal imaginable and come out the other side. But the trauma lingered in unexpected ways. I was hypervigilant about Sophie's whereabouts. I checked in constantly. I had trouble trusting anyone new. I second-guessed my own judgment. If I'd missed all the signs of Todd's betrayal for years, what else was I missing? Dr. Kim, Sophie's therapist, recommended I see someone too. I started therapy with a kind woman named Dr. Ellen Foster. She helped me understand that what happened wasn't my fault. Manipulative people are good at manipulation. That's what makes them dangerous. You're not stupid or blind. You loved someone who used that love against you. That's on him, not you. Slowly, I started to forgive myself. For not seeing it sooner. For signing those papers. For all the things I thought I should have done differently. 10 months after the birthday party, I got a letter from Todd. It came from the prison where he was serving his sentence. I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity got the better of me. The letter was long and rambling. He blamed the gambling addiction. He blamed the loan sharks who threatened him. He blamed everyone but himself. But at the end he wrote, "I know I can never undo what I did. I know I destroyed our family. I know Sophie probably hates me. I hate myself too. For what it's worth, I'm sorry." I read it once, then put it through the shredder. His apology meant nothing. Sorry didn't give me back the months of terror and pain. Sorry didn't erase the nightmares Sophie still had. Sorry didn't fix anything. But I realized something as I watched the paper strips fall into the trash. I didn't hate him anymore. I didn't feel anything for him at all. He was just a person who made terrible choices and destroyed his own life, along with almost destroying mine. He was irrelevant now. That night, Sophie asked me a question. "Mom, are you happy?" I thought about it carefully. "Yeah, baby, I am. Are you?" She nodded. "I'm happy we're together. I'm happy we're safe. I'm happy Grandma and Dad can't hurt us anymore." "Me too." "Mom, do you think you'll ever get married again? Or date someone?" "Someday, maybe. When I'm ready. When I find someone I can trust. But right now, I'm okay with it being just you and me." She hugged me. "I like it being just us two." 1 year after my mother's 60th birthday party, I stood in my kitchen on a Saturday morning making pancakes. The sun streamed through the windows I'd washed the day before. Sophie sat at the counter, telling me about the book she was reading. Her hair was in a messy ponytail, and she had syrup on her chin. She was 11 now, taller, more confident. The frightened child who'd called me from a gas station bathroom was still there, but healing around her. The house was truly ours now. Every room had been reclaimed and reimagined. Sophie's room with its lavender walls and string lights. My office with the standing desk and the new computer equipment. The living room with comfortable furniture we'd picked out together. The kitchen where we cooked and laughed and had our best conversations. This was home. Really home. My business was thriving. I had steady clients, interesting projects, and enough income to feel secure for the first time in years. I'd even hired an assistant, a recent college graduate named Emma, who reminded me of myself at that age, full of ideas and enthusiasm. Sophie was doing well in school. The therapy had helped immensely. She still had bad days, moments when the memories surfaced, but they were fewer now. She'd made new friends. She'd joined the school art club. She was learning to be a kid again. Amanda remained our rock. She'd become Aunt Amanda to Sophie. We spent holidays together. We had standing dinner dates every Wednesday. She'd started dating someone, a nice man named Marcus who worked as a teacher. Sophie approved of him, which mattered. The legal cases were finally, completely finished. Todd was serving his sentence. Dr. Patterson had been convicted and lost everything. Linda had paid her settlement and disappeared from our lives. Craig sent one final email 6 months ago, a short message saying he was moving to another state, that he hoped someday I might forgive him, but he understood if I never did. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I'd feel something other than indifference toward him. But not yet. The trauma of those months had changed me in ways both good and bad. I was warier now, less trusting. I kept careful control of my finances. I documented everything. I had cameras on my house and strong locks on every door. Some people might call it paranoia. I called it learning from experience, but I was also stronger. I knew what I was capable of surviving. I knew how to fight for what mattered. I knew the difference between people who truly loved me and people who used the word love as a weapon. Sophie and I had grown closer through it all. We talked about hard things now. We didn't hide fear or sadness or anger from each other. When she had nightmares, she came to my room and we talked about them. When I had bad days, I told her I was struggling, instead of pretending everything was fine. We were honest with each other in a way that made our relationship stronger. On this particular Saturday, As we ate pancakes together and planned our day, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole cautiously, a habit I'd never break. It was a delivery person with a package. I signed for it and brought it inside. The return address made my stomach clench. It was from the prison where Todd was incarcerated. Another letter. I set it on the counter. Sophie saw the address. Is that from Dad? Yeah. Are you going to read it? I don't know. Do you want me to? She thought about it carefully. Dr. Kim says I get to decide if I want contact with him someday. That it's my choice, not anyone else's. I don't want contact right now. Maybe when I'm older. Maybe never. I don't know yet. That's okay. You don't have to know yet. But Mom, whatever is in that letter, it doesn't change anything for us, right? We're still good? We're still good, baby. Nothing changes that. She smiled. Then I don't think you need to read it. What he has to say doesn't matter anymore. She was right. I took the unopened letter and put it in a drawer with the previous ones he'd sent. I didn't read them and I didn't throw them away. Someday, if Sophie wanted to know what her father had said, they'd be there. But they didn't have power over us anymore. That afternoon, Sophie and I went to the farmer's market downtown. It was a beautiful day, warm but not hot, with a slight breeze. We bought fresh vegetables and flowers and homemade bread. We ran into people we knew and stopped to chat. The woman who owned the bakery asked how we were doing and genuinely cared about the answer. The community that had once turned against me had embraced us again. As we walked back to the car, Sophie carrying a bunch of sunflowers almost as tall as she was, she said, Mom, remember when you got out of Grandma's house that night, when I called you? Yeah, baby. I remember. You listened to me. Even though it was crazy and didn't make sense. You just listened and you left. You trusted me. Of course I trusted you. A lot of parents wouldn't have. They would have thought I was being silly or overreacting. But you believed me right away. You're my daughter. When you tell me something is wrong, I believe you. That saved us, she said simply. You listening to me, that's what saved us. We saved each other, I corrected. You were brave enough to hide and listen and call me. I was smart enough to listen to you. We worked together. She smiled at that. We're a good team. The best team. That evening, I sat on the back porch after Sophie was asleep. The crickets chirped in the garden. The sky was full of stars. I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the fight, the victory, the healing. I'd learned things I never wanted to learn. That the people you trust most can betray you in ways you never imagined. That your own mother might choose money and control over her daughter. That a 12-year marriage can be built on lies. That evil doesn't always look like evil. Sometimes it looks like love. But I'd also learned that I was stronger than I knew. That my daughter was extraordinary. That real friends stand by you even when it costs them. That the truth matters, even when it's hard to prove. That fighting for what's right is worth it, even when the odds seem impossible. I'd learned that you can lose everything and still survive. That you can be broken and still heal. That you can be betrayed by family and still build a family worth having. 3 months after that terrible birthday party, Linda and Craig had shown up begging forgiveness. I'd turned them away and never regretted it. Some betrayals are too deep for forgiveness. Some relationships, once broken, should stay broken. I didn't owe them my forgiveness just because we shared DNA. I owed myself and Sophie peace and safety, and that meant keeping toxic people out of our lives. Sometimes people ask me if I hate them. Linda, Todd, Craig, Melissa. The answer is no. Hate takes energy I don't want to spend on them. They're just people who made terrible choices and have to live with the consequences. They don't occupy space in my thoughts anymore. What occupies my thoughts is building the life Sophie and I deserve. Planning for her future, growing my business, maybe someday when I'm ready, dating again. Maybe someday, finding someone I can trust with my heart. Or maybe not. Either way, I'm okay. The most important thing I learned is this. Trust your instincts. Believe your children. Fight for what's right even when everyone tells you you're wrong. Gather your evidence. Protect yourself and the people you love. Never give up, even when the path ahead looks impossible. Because on the other side of that impossible path is freedom, is peace, is the life you deserve. I got out of that house when Sophie told me to. I listened to my daughter when she said something was wrong. I fought back when they tried to destroy me. I protected my child when the whole world seemed against us. And I won. Not just in court. Not just in getting custody back. I won in the ways that really matter. Sophie and I are happy. We're healthy. We're healing. We're building a life filled with honesty and love and people who genuinely care about us. We're free from the people who tried to use us, control us, destroy us. That's the real victory. Not revenge, not punishment for those who hurt us. Freedom, peace. Joy in the simple things like Saturday morning pancakes and farmers, market sunflowers and bedtime stories. As I sat on that porch under the stars, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Genuine contentment. Not happiness built on lies or illusions. Real peace that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you've survived. Sophie and I had walked through fire. We'd been betrayed by the people who should have loved us most. We'd lost everything and fought our way back. And we'd come through it together, stronger and wiser. The people who tried to destroy us were living with the consequences of their choices now. Todd in prison, his life ruined by his own greed and addiction. Linda alone, having destroyed her relationship with her daughter and granddaughter for money she barely got to keep. Craig living somewhere else, carrying the guilt of his betrayal. Melissa starting over in a new state, running from her past. Dr. Patterson's career destroyed. But Sophie and I, we were thriving. That's what happens when you fight for truth. When you protect the people you love. When you refuse to give up, even when everyone tells you you're crazy. When you listen to your child and believe them. When you gather evidence and build your case and refuse to be silenced. Justice prevails. Not always quickly, not always easily. Sometimes the path to justice is brutal and unfair and devastating. But if you stay strong, if you keep fighting, if you never give up on the truth, you get to the other side. And the other side is worth every terrible moment of the journey. I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to fight for something when everyone told you you were wrong? Have you ever had to trust your instincts against people you loved? What gave you the strength to keep going? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story touched you, if it resonated with something in your own life, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. And subscribe to this channel so you never miss a story about survival, strength, and triumph over betrayal. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's fighting their own battle. Someone who needs to know that even when everything seems lost, there's still hope. There's still a path forward. There's still victory waiting on the other side of the struggle. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that truth matters and that fighting for what's right is worth it. May you always trust your instincts. May you always fight for those you love. May you always find the strength to stand up when others try to knock you down. And may you always remember that even in your darkest moments, you're stronger than you know. Stay strong, stay brave, and never give up.